Ruth Miller thinks, if the crash don't get their attention, the nuke will. Dirty thing she is too. Guaranteed death for everything in a 5-kilometre radius, eventually. Probably poison most people's genes in 50, too. Ruth looks into her compact for the last time and refixes her veil. They're dressed as Saudis out of a trained compulsion to mislead, but she's not amused by the disguise. Then the UN choppers pass overhead, as predicted. The bomb's rigged to be detonated by their own impact explosion. Just to be sure there is one, the freedom fighters have strapped explosives to their waists and doused the cockpit as a failsafe. They're ready to rock the gates of history for the benefit of humanity. Dave has a fist on his lap, a laser-sighted machine gun with explosive shells, but in the circumstances, the gun is little more than a talisman. Even the crash itself will be mostly a sort of theatrical stunt. He flicks his safety catch and nods. Captain Miller turns and says to both him and Kevin, "The next move in the game of history is here and now, guys. Get ready for glory," she adds, only a little ironically. It's easy to understand the need for sacrifice here, she thinks to herself, remembering the teaching. This is a level of action where pure focus will be the decisive factor for victory. She's feeling particularly twisted up with strands of vague regret today, though. She can't say why specifically. Perhaps because it's set to be a clear blue sky day, a children buying balloons off clowns sort of day. She and her crew watch the sunrise through the dinosaur bone remains of the skyscrapers in front of them. The bombed-out plaza is deserted, the last avalanche of ordnance from the bandits ringing the city having cleared both the air and the buildings. This used to be one of the upmarket shopping boulevards, now, aptly, a consumerist graveyard. It seems to Ruth that its silence is a lament for the whole sinking world. "Time to increase the entropy, guys," she says, winking to Dave as she lifts the copter into the air. It was hijacked last night from a news crew. It says Planet TV on its sides in gold and black, accompanying an emblem of a gold sphinx. Hopefully this camouflage will confuse security about their intentions long enough for them to get really close. If not, it doesn't really matter, not from the Megaton perspective. But they want to make it look good. For this consciousness-raising exercise, the cell wants to get really intimate with the power brokers. Kevin in the back with the camera plans to beam the look of the politicians' faces live to Planet TV's news desk as their death slams down on them from above. The stolen copter buzzes along above wrecked boulevard, then veers off to the right over extinct offices and random rubble, heading towards the local UN HQ. The HQ is highly visible, being the only building left with all its walls intact. The US-led delegation has apparently come to facilitate negotiations between the peacekeepers and the rebels, but that's mere details. The info about the summit meeting at this centre was expensive, but that's mere details too. With absurdly bad taste, Kevin the camera jokes, "This is situationist art with an explosive finale." The shotgun Welshman nods, saying, "Explosive action it is. I am become death, the destroyer of worlds. This'll make us immortal." Coming live to you by satellite. Ruth comments, "It isn't just mindless violence, guys. It's a strategic incision into the political process. A way for a window of thought to be opened onto the world. By fire, since peace won't work. We're a refiner's fire for political gold." "Like, point your laser here for maximum effect," Kevin says, holding the camera like the machine gun he wishes it was, trying to disguise his nerves about his impending death. Dave the Welsh strokes dryly. It's hard times when the only way to publicise protest is with a nuclear bomb. Ruth corrects him. "This is beyond politics too, guys. It's destruction for the continuation of civilization. Any real chance for humanity depends in a very real way on what we're doing this morning." Consumer sickness still dusts its toxic message across the world as we continue to beam down stupid happy images of avarice from an encircling net of satellites. but a billion starving mouths still gape at me whenever I really see the path we're on. How long will we all simply sit still and let this global destruction carry on, getting worse every day? People can't just sit in silence forever, pretending that everything's okay. But the trio retreat into silence as they fly on. Once Ruth was sure that there was time to redirect the world through peaceful protest. But now she's approaching a pockmarked ex-presidential palace at 200 kilometers an hour, planning to produce high death counts in the name of love. The palace is the UN outpost for the latest society to machete its own development by civil war. Or, as Dave prefers to put it, the latest petty state ravaged by self-destructively vengeful peasants and their sociopathic warlord bosses. Below, global apparatchiks disgorge from the grounded machines with visions of political and economic development in their minds. Diplomats shake hands. Soldiers stand by the compound's gates, ostentatiously armed. The party of politicians starts to funnel in through the columned palace porch. "You're right, Dave, we're angels of death," Captain Miller says as she points their wasp at its target, aiming at the centre of the rare collection of local power broker tourists below her and accelerating. Dave leans out of the window and shouts, "Look out, powers that be! Here comes ultimate reality!" Now Dave starts picking off UN guardians with fluid pulses of explosive metal. Ruth glances over her shoulder to see Kevin's gaze and grin both insanely fixed. Kevin thinks, all this to get a good shot, but what a classic. Ruth briefly notes the surprise on the WTO chairman's face as he turns to look up into her eyes, just as his destiny collides with him, and she suddenly comprehends why violence cannot be the way forwards. The Arab Welshman beside her is already dead from UN peace bullets by the time the copter's nose cone introduces itself to the British ambassador. The other delegates have only milliseconds to not really register the cataclysm coming into being around them before they're engulfed in fire. There's peace for a slenderest slither of a second, as in the centre of the frozen flame there is a moment of silence. Then the nuke explodes.